Us presento a la doctora Eleni Kanetaki. Us faré una petita presentació de la seva trajectòria, d'acord? I després us deixo amb ella. Farà avui una conferència molt interessant sobre museïtzació amb tecnologies i amb realitat augmentada i demés, amb noves tecnologies, i que us pot ser de molt interès perquè creiem que és transversal per a totes les especialitats i que serà molt profitosa. Llavors, us la presento, és enginyera arquitecta per la Universitat Tècnica Nacional d'Atenes i especialitzada en restauració de monuments per la Universitat La Sapienza de Roma, doctora per la Universitat Nacional Tècnica d'Atenes al Departament de Disseny Arquitectònic. Després, en la seva trajectòria, ha participat en multitud de projectes arquitectònics de documentació de monuments i de restauració de conjunts històrics, i també és col·laboradora científica en programes de recerca i organitzacions internacionals sobre patrimoni cultural. La seva experiència docent ha passat per la Universitat Nacional Tècnica d'Atenes, la Universitat de Patra, la Universitat Demòcrit de Tràcia, entre altres, i actualment és professora de la University of West Attica. A més, és membre de l'ICOMOS en la secció hel·lènica des de l'any 99, des de 1999, i membre del Comitè de Treball del Patrimoni Cultural de la Cambra Tècnica de Grècia. Us deixo amb ella. Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you, Silvia. So, good morning again. I'm really happy to be back after Monday's lecture. So the presentation of today, as Silvia has said, is going to focus on the use of innovative technology regarding the rehabilitation and the cultural itineraries which are designed in an area. So in this case, I will take you again to Greece. I will take you to Athens, and especially the port of Piraeus. We shall be talking about digital technology, how it has been applied into creating a cultural itineraries in the historical city of Piraeus. Just a few words. This is where we are. I showed you the same picture 3 days ago on Monday. You're in Barcelona, of course. And the website, actually the digital application about which I shall be talking, it's an application which is partly finalized. A few things have to be added more. It's practically an application which has been funded by the EU. It's supposed to be the work of a cultural foundation in Greece, Ekaterini Laskaridis Foundation. And it's a foundation that's dealing with a lot of cultural activities, information programs for students, as well as for projects in general about cultural. So in 2018, I will just be brief and tell you the story. In 2018, they started planning this web application, which would be for the neoclassical city of Piraeus. Piraeus is the port of Athens, and it has a very important story. I will show it to you in a while. So in 2018, we started kind of programming this project. What would have to be included in this digital application? At that time, before the COVID of course, we were applying to the municipality of Piraeus to give us the funding, and they, on their behalf, were supposed to apply to the EU to get the important funding. So from 2018, we waited, and in 2021, the funding came, 40% reduced. But anyway, the money came. So the municipality kind of gave that money to the Laskaridis Foundation, and they, in collaboration with the digital company Aegean Solutions, they started working on the project. I was the only researcher in this case, and from 2018, as I was preparing, I was sure that they would get the project, but it was for me, a very enthusiastic idea to work on how to design this cultural itinerary website for the city of Piraeus. So I'm really happy that they had, they trusted me. So the way I designed it, all the information which I gave, the research into archives, the architectural surveys, the photographs which were taken, the texts which I included, everything was based on my ideas. So again, I'm saying I'm very happy. I should add that the web application is available in 6 languages. Of course, the first is Greek. The second is English. We have Spanish, we have German and Chinese. The English, the Greek part is more extended, while the foreign ones are a bit shorter, but you get the information. So when you log into the website, you will find a lot of information. Allow me to say again that a few things are missing, so don't be very strict with your judging. Hopefully by the end of the year it's going to be perfect. Therefore, the idea was to create a cultural itinerary, 4 itineraries, in the city of Piraeus. It's the port of Athens and it dates from the 19th century, or at least their web application was supposed to focus on the neoclassical buildings. So the idea was to try to find what is there to enhance. The buildings are listed. It's more like 400 buildings listed by the Ministry of Culture. Of course, due to the reduced budget, we could not include all of them, and we are independent. We are not part of the Ministry of Culture. We just had to apply to take the permissions. And since we were doing this amazing work, I suggested to add more buildings, not just the neoclassical part, 19th century, but also the beginning of the 20th, which would be like 1920, 1930. It's a time that we have eclecticism in Greece. And we notice a difference. And at the end, I suggested to have also archaeological sites, because since you're doing this thing, since all the information has been added, when somebody is in Piraeus and you have to wait 3 hours to take your boat to go, let's say, to the Cyclades, or 4 hours, okay, why not spend a few hours looking around? And also, I was able to document the buildings through paintings, through literature, of course, research into the archives, old photographs which are found in archives in Greece, some documents which are found in abroad. For example, I found the letters which were exchanged by the German architect Ernst Ziller, and which are now collected in the Danish library in Stockholm. So imagine all the information which has been added. Okay, I'll go to the main point. This is the city of Piraeus. This is the port of Athens, and practically we have 3 ports, and they all date from the antiquity. Athens is a huge area. It's like 5 million people, half of the population of Greece living there, and not just the Acropolis. It's really worth to be seen. Okay, most of you, if you come to Athens, surely you will pass by the Acropolis because it's the most important archaeological site you have. But we also have a few more others. So this is a plan from the Google map. You can see 3 ports. The big one is where the main ships are leaving for the Cyclades, for Crete, and it's the main important commercial hub. Also, a part of it has been given to the Chinese Costco, unfortunately. But anyway, the municipality is doing their best to enhance this whole area. So it's not just a place where you come, you take the boat and you leave. It's a place where you should spend some time. And also for the people of Piraeus living there, in some cases they don't know their history. So this is the first big port. This is the second one, where the Katerinos Karidis Foundation is also situated. They have 3 buildings, but the main one is here. And there's a third one here. So you have the big port of Piraeus, the port of Zea, or Torkolimano, and the port of Monihia. Okay, I'm just giving you some Greek names. But there are 3 main ports. So you have some more pictures. You can see this is the industrial area of Athens, very close to the city, unfortunately. This is the second one, and the third one. And a few more pictures to get an idea about the cityscape. So you start to realize a few archaeological sites. For example, in this area, the remains of fortifications and gates, very important. The city of Piraeus was supposed to be connected to the antiquity in the 5th century. There were supposed to be big walls which were connecting Athens, the center, with the port, Piraeus. So these amazing walls were unfortunately during the years and the centuries, in a big part, they were destroyed, they were damaged. Some parts are still remaining. So in this web application, we tried to get the permission also from the Ministry of Culture to include photographs from their main point of attention. You can see here, for example, this was the center of Athens. This is the area of Piraeus, and there were supposed to be big walls, very, very thick, two, the north and the south one, and all this area was supposed to be very protected. And Athens at that time had Piraeus, of course, as its main port for commercial, it was the main port of the city. You can see what's left. Here are some remains. This is the main fortification with towers very close to the port. In the city center, as you walk across, you will find, for example, these kind of remains. And Piraeus has also a Hellenistic theater in the type of the Greek ancient theaters. This is the area of the Archaeological Museum, so you can imagine a rich history behind all that. So the website, as I said, had designed the way that it would be. So the main divisions of what this application would include. And as I said, when you log into the website, you will find the main titles, the main chapters, and the sub-chapters later. And when you go to the last part, you will see it's offered, as I said, in Greek, English, German, I think Spanish and Chinese. So I don't know whether the traduction is very good, but you get a lot of information about how the application is designed. So what we included in this web application? Practically archaeological maps and information about inscription, information about how the city of Piraeus was supposed to be in the ancient times. Since the application is mainly focused on the neoclassical period, that's 19th century, we had to talk and give information about how the city developed. So how the city developed. I'll take you to the history of Greece. 1822, 1821 is a time that there is the Greek Revolution against the Ottoman Turks. Greece was under the Ottoman Empire for 4 centuries. From 1397, it's the time that the first city in the northern part of Greece, close to the border with Turkey, falls under the Ottomans. So slowly they start going to the lower part of Greece. They capture Thessaly, they capture Athens, they capture Peloponnese and the islands. In 1822-21, 19th century, you have the revolution. So in a while, let's say the land is liberated, and in a while we are supposed to have also a German king. So the German king Otho from Bavaria, in the 1930s, in the 1830s, he tried to make Athens, which was at that time, let's say, a typical village of the Ottoman Empire. As he takes over and he comes from Germany, in a few words, I would have to say that he starts to imagine making Athens an important capital, just like Munich and just like a neoclassical city of the time. So he invites two architects from Germany. The one is Greek, Stamatis Kleanthis. The other one is German, Edward Schaubert. So in 1834, they designed the city of Athens and they designed the city of Piraeus. So they designed, that's important, designing in the neoclassical period, designing a new city from scratch. Of course, the ambitious projects were not realized as they imagined, because they started reducing they were supposed to dedicate a lot of space in the archaeological sites to revive the archaeological antiquity and the remains, but the plans are kind of remodeled, and the origin of what Athens is now and the origin of how Piraeus was, let's say, it's evidence at least in the plans. So we went through to look for these amazing plans and talk about the evolution of how the urban side of Piraeus has changed through the centuries. Therefore, you will find a lot of information about how the city was a century ago. An important map is this one, which was by the end of the 19th century by the German, by Curtius and Kaupert, where you start to realize that the city is already forming, is already, you have areas, you have suburbs, and the port of Piraeus has already started to become important. And when we talk about neoclassicism, we also have to refer that it's a style that came to Athens, that came to Greece by the Germans. So it's kind of mingled with the local architectural ideas and how the Greek, let's say, idiom was. But it's a result of a German-brought architectural feature with the Greek architectural character. So here it's the this important map that shows the areas in Piraeus. This has also been included. And what was very helpful is by enlarging parts of the map to read through the basic text. So, for example, for me it was very important because here in German it says Zilla Kolonie. It's a part that the German architect Ernst Ziller has designed. And Ziller was very important because along with other Germans, he designed many, many buildings in Greece, not just Athens. So the result of what we call neoclassicism now in Greece is practically the result of the work of numerous German architects plus Greek ones who studied in Germany, and they came to Athens and they brought over this feature. So a few of the pictures I found in archives of museums in Greece, for example, show how the city is growing. All these photographs, we took the permission and they have been added in the website. And then since we knew the position of certain monuments, we were trying to locate them in pictures like that. So imagine enlarging the photograph in high resolution in the computer and trying to figure out a church which up to now exists, where is it found, and how the city has changed throughout the years. As I said, you will have all the information under, I will show you the website in a while. And we also added a number of photographs which date from the 1950s. Unfortunately, the 1950s and 60s in Greece was a time of, let's say, economical development. So the political decisions at that time were trying to forget about the cultural part. And therefore, all the politicians, and especially the ministers in the field of construction, they allowed the Greeks to demolish the neoclassical buildings which were found in many, many cities in order to construct new, let's say, modern buildings. But the idea to construct a modern building and construct a seventh floor apartment building, demolishing all the neoclassical ones, meant losing at a big percentage the originality of the place. This happened in Athens, this happened in Piraeus, this happened, unfortunately, in many, many cities of Greece. That meant losing a part of our history, of course. For me, I'm dealing with this part. For me, this was a disaster. But this was kind of 1950s, 1960s. It was a time that Greeks were starting to move from the countryside to the big cities. Athens was kind of attracting people due to the financial also reason. So we cannot just judge out of one reason. It was a number of parameters which unfortunately led to this distraction of the architectural character of the cities. But there have been archives, and especially there is a Greek photographer who was capturing these moments. I managed to find him, and we took the permission to use his photographs. A number of his photographs from the 1960s have been added in this web application. So theoretically, when you walk around Piraeus, you will be able to, and you have your mobile phone in your hands, you're able to locate that, okay, in this, let's say in this place, in this corner, there is a seventh floor building, but when you look at the picture in the website, you find the neoclassical building, which was once situated there. So it's trying to revive the architectural feature of the place. And you have information about the initial plan of Piraeus. Piraeus in the antiquity, a big port, was designed in the so-called Hippodamian way. Hippodamus was a major urban planner of the antiquity, and he designed cities in such a way with the orthogonal grid, vertical and horizontal lines. So many cities in the past have kept this system, the Hippodamian style, and Piraeus is a major example. So we have information about the evolution of the antique plans, the city plan in the 19th century, the neoclassicism period. We are also giving information about the most important architects of the time, plus the archaeological areas. And then I was able to find cards which were sent at that time, which were showing how Piraeus was. Again, you can see different buildings. This is the major port. This is a church which up to now still exists. This was the main promenade and the market. Also, because Piraeus was becoming a very important industrial port in the 19th century. A lot of small factories were there. Some of them are still existing, but they are empty. Nobody's using them. Because of course the major industry in the 19th and beginning of 20th century has moved to, let's say, an hour's distance away from Athens. But we have found a lot of information which talk about this period, so industrial revolution and how it has been done in Athens. These are also some pictures which we found in the archives of another foundation in Greece, where they allowed us to use them. So we are supposed to be using all this information and reconstruct to the visitor, to the person who lives there, reconstruct how the city once was. A few more pictures would show how it was, how it is. This, for example, was once, unfortunately, a very big, important naval warehouse. It is now partly demolished, as you can see. This was a picture of the 1960s, a little bit before, after demolishing one part of it. It's 1836, something like that. And you can see that it was deliberately burned. That is the usual process in Greece, unfortunately. The building, the listed building, sometimes is under fire. So at the end, if it's damaged, there are two ways. Either you will demolish it, or you will have to search for a funding to reconstruct it, to restore it. The funding usually doesn't come, because if it's not part of the Ministry of Culture, it's very difficult to find the funding, unless the person, the owner, can give this kind of money. So when you go into the part of the architectural works, you're suggested 4 itineraries, where the city was kind of divided in 4 parts, 4 areas, and we tried to highlight the most important monuments, listed buildings in most cases. Many others could have been added, but you see, in a place where 400 buildings are listed, plus archaeological sites, there are some where people are still living, so we could not actually go into more information because it's private ownership. But we added numerous other buildings and ones that belong to the state. Therefore, you will have a chance, when you click into every point, you get information about the history of the building. We have found plans. The students of the Faculty of Architecture during the past years, that's what we did as architects, as students. We used to go and measure and produce architectural survey plans of many of the neoclassical buildings in Athens. And when I was a student, professors were sending us also to Piraeus. Therefore, we have used a number of plans from the University of Athens, and they are also going to be added here. But you can see we have a lot of buildings which are important. I will show you some of them, which I think will help you understand why Piraeus is important. The Municipality Theatre of Piraeus in the 19th century, it was very important. It was designed by a Greek architect who took over the plans which were applied also in France, in Paris. The Naval Academy in another area which is founded, it's in a place that it's kind of restricted because it's allowed only for sailors, but it's an interesting area also again in the 19th century and taking after the neoclassical features. Again, the area of the municipal theatre. I should add that Athens at this point, like a month ago, they inaugurated the 3rd line of the metro, and now the metro arrives also in Piraeus. Imagine that digging under the underground level of Athens, that produces a number of antiquities. It's actually a place where wherever you dig, you will find antiquities. And now the line of the metro has arrived to Piraeus. This is an old picture. It shows here the area for the metro station. Now it's open, it has been redesigned, and practically somebody can cross Athens and arrive to the port also by the metro. So as we said, we added also buildings which date in the eclecticism period, up to 1930, 1940. These are also important buildings, at least for Greek historians and Greek architects. This, for example, was designed by Nikoloudis. He was a Greek architect who studied in Paris, and so he came a lot of features from the Beaux-Arts and he applied them into his construction in Greece. The same thing also with this building, which was designed by another architect. He studied in Istanbul in Turkey, and then he came to Greece and he actually designed a number of buildings which were belonging to the National Bank of Greece. And so you see there are some buildings which, at least for Greeks, look very imposing, very important, and they bring along an important history. Apart from the important buildings, though, we have the neoclassical ones. And as I said, some of them are unfortunately neglected. Why? The main reason is the financial thing, that owners cannot afford to reconstruct them, and there is no actual funding from the municipality, or at least the funding that the municipality gives is just to make a repaint in the facade, which at the end doesn't save the building. So in some cases, some buildings have become the offices of naval companies. In other cases, nothing has happened. And you can see the buildings there. So the architectural the itineraries, the arc walks, as we call them, Piraeus arc walks, are four. You can see here the four different categories. This is in English, but as I said, you can skip to the Spanish edition. And for example, you find information about the antiquity, the evolution of the city. You find information about the archaeological areas, which was, as I said, was added in addition. It was not initially included. So you know that wherever you're walking in the city of Piraeus, you know what you can see. And you can limit yourself into a 2 hours walk, into 4 hours, and differentiate what's important and what is not important. We also have 3D videos which are not yet uploaded. I don't know why they didn't upload them yet. But what we did is we tried to reconstruct into 3D models 3 important buildings of Piraeus. These were done with the help of a friend of an engineer who collaborated with the company, the digital company that did all this application. So as I said, the funding was by the EU, provided to the municipality of Piraeus. This was all a design project by the Katerinas Laskaridis Foundation, and it was enabled through the Aegean Solutions office. They work on this kind of applications, and I was the main researcher. So we added a number of plans, which were, as I said, by the students of architecture. So this is a topic we were working on, architectural surveys. I collected this kind of information. This has to be added again into the website. So a lot of buildings have been documented by picture, by photograph, by plans, by a short history describing the morphology of the building, plus if there is a new use, information about the new use, and more about the cultural identity of the building. And let's come to another point, because as I said, Greece in the 18th and the 19th century was a place where a number of German architects have worked. It's important for me to mention that we found the original plans of the architect Ernst Ziller. He came to Greece to work with the two Danish architects, the Hansen brothers. They were responsible for designing the main center of Athens and the trilogy of the academy, the library, and the third building in the center of Athens. So Ziller, he kind of designed numerous buildings. Some were private ownership houses, some others were banks, but we were lucky because we were given the permission to search into the National Library, the National Pinacoteca of Athens, and we found the plans which are designed in scale 150. So imagine looking into plans of a century ago, more than a century ago. And we used the plans to reconstruct the model, the 3D model of one of his buildings. So 3D projects have been applied and will have to be added to the website. And we kind of use this 3D representation to show the buildings. For example, in this case, this is one of the two buildings which are constructed here. We managed to find photographs of the end of the 19th century. This is a building, this is a photograph of the 1950s, and I think this is on the day that it's going to be demolished. So 1975, there were two double buildings. One of them was demolished. They constructed a new modern building. And here are some pictures from the video, the 3D representation. So practically we used the plans, a 2D dimensional representation to create a 3D representation, and this is going to be a video which will be applied and uploaded later in the application. So I took some snapshots from the application, and you can see it here. And also there were two other buildings which are important in the city of Piraeus, and we also applied it here. And I think this is the last picture of the PowerPoint, but I can log into the website and I can show it to you. Excuse me a moment. So let's skip to the Spanish edition. So Spanish here. So you're able to find all the information I showed you. For example, the plan of the city, the neoclassical period, who were the main architects of the time. So you have, for example, Zilla, which I mentioned already. You have Theophil and Christian Hansen, the ones who came and they constructed important buildings in the city of Athens. Schaubert, he was the guy who came from Germany and worked with the Greek. Where is he? Stamatis Kleanthes. You have, for example, also information about their studies, where they were born. So it's a website that gives information about the urban evolution of the city, about the neoclassical period, about the archaeological sites, and also here there should be the collection of texts from literature, because a number of Greek writers wrote about Piraeus. Piraeus in the beginning of the 20th century, since it was a commercial and industrial area, was very important. I forgot to mention also that in 1922 there was a big destruction of the city of Smyrna in Turkey. So Smyrna was a Greek city, and Smyrna was important because also many Greeks. There was a Greek community in Smyrna, a Greek community in Alexandria in Egypt, and these communities were rich merchants. Smyrna is very close to the island of Chios and Lesbos, so there was continuous merchandise brought from Turkey to Greece in that way, by boats. So all these rich merchants in Smyrna had amazing buildings. When they set fire to Smyrna, they destroyed a big part also of the Greek community there. So in the 1922, more than I think 1 million of Greeks from Turkey had to come to Greece and find a new life and settle in Greece while their life was there. So they came to Athens, and many of them had to stay for a number of, I think, more than a year in Piraeus. The theater I showed you, it became the place where the refugees, the Greek refugees from Turkey, from Smyrna, they came to Athens, they came to Greece. And slowly they started to build a new life, which was never a new life for them because the important buildings in Smyrna remained there. But anyway, Piraeus also was important for this, let's say, humanistic part in a social way, because there the first immigrants from the Greeks from Smyrna, where they came and trying to find a new life. They never did, but there are some comments about it, and there is also, it's written in literature. There are some Greek writers, for us very important, who talk about the fire which destroyed a big part of Smyrna. And this is, we try to find also the parts of the texts, reading for literature, where they talk about the suburb of Piraeus, where they came and tried to construct a new house, for example. Also in the 1950s and 60s, Greek painters, here for example, where are they? It's like they have added paintings which show how Piraeus was. You can see here, for example, the drawings of Ziller. Also, this is, let's say, a representation of the port. These are architectural plans which were found. Also, these were from, as I said, from painters, important ones, Greek ones, photographs. So it's like they have added 40, they must add numerous more. The plans, for example, from the port, different scenes, again plans, photographs, architectural surveys from the plans of Ziller, of other buildings, important ones, the Naval Academy. This is the main church. So all that was found after, as I said, like 2 or 3 years of research. I was very lucky because I had collected a lot of material before the COVID. So 19 and 1920, everything was closed. Libraries, archives, it was not possible to access them. But this has been already collected, and I was able to write the texts throughout the period of the COVID, but the pandemic. You have plans depicting the initial Hippodamian layout plan, and as you can see, also depictions. This was the plan of the building I showed you before its demolition, and many others. So you find information about the project here, how it was designed, where it has been financed from, and well, as I said, a lot of things have to be added in addition, but it's already functioning, and few things can be added more. Well, I also have the video, which was, as I said, elaborated by my colleague. He actually worked with the Cultural Application Office. If you want to show, I can show it to you. It's not in this. Actually presented it in a conference a month ago in Athens, in Thessaloniki. It may be, the text is in Greek because it was for the conference, but you can see what will be uploaded later. It's 3 minutes. So there's information about parts from the literature, parts from yeah. So that's one of the 3 buildings, the 3 videos that we will be showing. Imagine that we used the plans which were found in the archive, the Ziller archive. We used photographic also. I was able to photograph other buildings by the same architect in Athens, and we combined certain details, and we tried to apply them into this 3D application. An important work which was done by my colleague. These videos were done by the architect that was working with us, and I think they give an excellent example of how we can use architecture, and we can do this kind of enhancing of a model of a building like that. So 1973, the time that they are demolishing it, the images, the figures that you see here of the figures were remodeled. We took the same figures which were designed in another building in the city of Athens, actually Ziller's house in the city of Athens. We photographed them, and through photogrammetry we applied the same figure because we had no information. As I said, the plans were found in scale 1:50, And so my colleague Isidoros, he did this excellent job with the 3D representation. He took all the information I gave him, and we did this. That's how it is today. So there were supposed to be 2 buildings belonging to a merchant called Negotis Patsiadis of the 19th century. He was very rich. He constructed these 2 buildings, but unfortunately now only one remains. So as it says here in Greek, the digital representation was based on the plans of Ernst Silla found in the Pinacotheca of Athens. So Isidoros Plakotaris, he's the colleague. He did all this 3D, and I was the researcher on behalf of the Foundation of Laskaridis. And here are some information more about the sources that we used, music plus photographs, and geo solutions under the finance by the municipality of Piraeus and of course by the EU. So this is the last part of the presentation. As I said, this is going to be also added here in the website. They are missing the link to add the 3D representations. We also have 2 more buildings like that. The one was the Laskaridis Foundation, 19th century important mansion, and the third one was a so-called the clock of Piraeus. Not exactly the clock. It was mainly the municipality building of the 19th century, an important building which was later on the stock market. But in the 1970s, it was a period that you had the junta. The political situation in Greece was not that good, so they demolished a number of buildings. So they demolished also that, and we used old pictures. We used photogrammetry also from the photographs to apply the same technique. So my colleague, he did the same thing. We worked together, and I'm not showing you also the other example, but you will have the possibility to find them later as applications on the website. So you can find everything here, also, as I said, in all the languages. This is the last picture of the presentation, and I thank you for your attention. If you want to ask me anything, I would be happy to reply to you.